G'day everyone, welcome back to Chalk Talks. Today we're discussing the final part in the three-part series about the ABS, Mastersmith. If you haven't already watched the first two parts of this series, then please go and watch those, because those will explain the process up to this point. And a lot of what we're going to cover here is already covered in the Journeyman Smith portion of this talk, so I'm going to keep this one relatively short, and if you want to get more details on the actual practical testing side of things, the Journeyman Smith test has a more comprehensive view of that. So, once you've made your JS, you've actually passed the testing and you've got your JS stamp, you then have to wait at least a year before doing the practical test, and then 2 years before you can do your judging for Mastersmith. Now remember, after the practical test, you have up to 3 years to do your judging, so you can do the practical test a year after making Journeyman and then wait that next year to the next Blade show to then present your Mastersmith testing knives. Most of the guys that I know have spent many years as Journeyman before they go for Mastersmith. Very few people take the path of, get there as fast as they can, but you can if you want to. So, the minimum is 2 years for Journeyman to get to judging, but 1 year to get to the practical. Once you've completed that 1 year of waiting before you can get to your practical test, you then need to contact a Mastersmith of your choosing. It can be the same person that you did your JS testing through, or it can be a different Mastersmith, but it doesn't matter, it has to be a Mastersmith to do your practical test. Now your practical test knife fits the same dimensions, the 5-inch handle, 10-inch blade, 15 inches overall maximum for your JS testing knife, but there are two key differences. The main difference is that the blade has to be of 300 layers or more of Damascus steel, so pattern welded steel of, varying different contents of carbon, or, 15 and 20 and 1084, which is what most people do. But either way, your blade must be constructed of 300 layers plus. And Mastersmiths have been around long enough and have looked at enough Damascus blades to know what a 300 layers blade looks like. So make sure that you're actually doing the 300 layers required. The second main consideration is that the tang has to be a stick or through tang construction. It cannot be a full tang, it has to be a stick or through tang. So it can be a hidden tang so that it doesn't have the bolt on the end, but for that extra added security, it must. You not must, but it's definitely recommended that you have a through tang. The big thing is the tang must not bend. If the tang bends during testing, any part of the testing, then it's an immediate fail. So this stick tang must be strong, must be very, very strong. And if it does bend or pop the handle or anything like that, you fail. This is a difference to the Journeyman where there was no handle construction at all. Now, a guard or ferrules or bolsters are not required, but obviously they strengthen the points between the guard and the shoulder, and they can also strengthen the butt to handle connection as well. So those are up to you, but it has to be a stick tang, and it has to be strong enough to support the load when you're bending the knife to 90 degrees. Because remember, this is exactly the same testing as Journeyman. You've got to cut that 1-inch hanging manila rope. You've got to chop a 2x4 twice, still should be able to shave arm hair, and then you have to bend the knife to 90 degrees without it cracking more than 1/3 the width of the blade. Now, if you want a really good example of the Mastersmith testing and the way that a Mastersmith goes about making Mastersmith knives, Kyle Royer, as I mentioned, actually did a series, Journey to Master, on his channel, following how he made 3 Mastersmith testing knives and tested 2 of them to destruction at home before doing his Mastersmith testing. So if you want to see that done, head over to Kyle's channel. I'll link it up here and down in the description below, hopefully. And yeah, go out and check that, because that's literally the series that got me into bladesmithing, like in the beginning. But it's also a really good resource for anyone who's looking to do either Journeyman or Mastersmith, but especially Mastersmith. Provided you pass the practical test, you'll then have 3 years to submit 5 knives to the panel of judges at either the ICCE, I believe, or Blade Show in Atlanta. And when you submit those 5 knives, these are the ones that have the most requirements. Now, obviously in the Journeyman Smith, if you watched that one, you'll know that it was simply 5 knives of your own design that could not contain any Damascus in any part of them, but should be of different styles in order to actually, purvey your skill as a knife maker. And all the details can be listed in the ABS website, which I will link down in the description below. For the judging for Mastersmith, however, there are a couple of requirements. The main requirement is the quote-unquote art knife quill and dagger. Now, a quill and dagger is what you would think of when you think of any dagger from the medieval period. Just an easy, simple, symmetrical guard which can be turned, can be stock removed or anything like that, but cannot be ovate or round or anything like that. It has to be two quillons, like a sword guard. And it has to be made of Damascus. It has to be a minimum of 300 layers, and it has to be a planned pattern. So it has to be a twist, or a ladder, or a raindrop, or anything like that. Some people do mosaics. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You're just trying to show your ability to make Damascus and forge a pattern that is actually controlled, rather than random pattern. It also has to have a fluted handle. So the fluted handle, if you look at any of the Mastersmith collection on the ABS website or at Sharp by Coop's selection, you'll see that the handles have those hollow flutes in them, and between those flutes is required twisted metal inlay. Now, the twisted wire has to be a half depth twisted inlay, so the half width of the wire. So half of the wire has to be sticking out of the inlay, and it cannot be glued in. It can only be glued in at the ends that are hidden, but the actual wires themselves between the flutes have to be held in place just by friction. And there has to be a minimum of 4 flutes. They do not have to be twisted. They can be straight and parallel with the blade. That's a little trickier, but it depends on the design you're going for. But yeah, you need a minimum of 4. It needs to be made of the best material you can use. So think stabilized timbers or mammoth ivory or anything like that. The whole idea is that you're trying to make an art quality knife. The blade has to be a minimum of 10 inches from the tip to the front of the guard, right? So it cannot be any less than 10 inches from the tip of the front of the guard, and has to be basically, overall, has to be very symmetrical, right? If you drew a line down the middle, it'd have to be perfectly symmetrical, except for the twists if you're doing a twist in the flute. The other 4 knives, 2 of them, a maximum of 2 of them can be folders. They do not recommend this because they will look at it closed and open and make sure that it is centered and perfect and all the action is perfect. There's no rub marks on anything or anything like that, so it's a next level thing if you do 2 folders for your Mastersmith. You also have to make the blades of Damascus if you're making folders. Otherwise, the 4 other knives do not have to be Damascus in the Mastersmith testing, though they can contain Damascus in the fittings and in the blades. They are not required to. Obviously, a lot of Mastersmiths will choose to have at least 2 or 3 blades of their 5-blade collection, including the quill and dagger, be Damascus, just to show different patterns and different designs and stuff like that. But again, the only required Damascus blades are the quill and dagger and the folders. Once you've submitted those, again, it just goes up to the Mastersmith panel of judges, and the big thing for them is that they are looking for a mistake. Any mistake. If there is a mistake, you fail. So in Journeyman Smithing, there is an allowance for certain mistakes, and they grade you on points, and there's kind of a yes or no, lots of argument apparently between the Mastersmith judges as to whether or not a certain blade passes, whereas with Mastersmithing, if you fail, you fail. That's it. Perfect example of this, Niels Vandenberg was on the Forgecast recently. Listen to that episode, it was fantastic, but he talked about when he went for Mastersmith and he forgot to tighten the pommel nuts on his daggers, and so the guards actually slipped back from blades. Now, all he had to do was tighten those nuts up, but he technically failed, and they allowed him to tighten the pommel nuts on his on his daggers and actually get the pass. But they look for any mistake at all, and you're guaranteed to fail. So they have to be of superlative quality, which superlative is above excellent. It's above amazing. It is, perfect. So the judging is incredibly intense, and I don't think I'll be going for Mastersmith in the next 10 years, but we'll see. Once you've passed this, you get your MS rating. Your MS rating allows you to have an MS stamp from the ABS, which is in a certain font and allows you to carry MS at the end of your name. And then you are starting on your journey to becoming a decent knife maker, according to most mastersmiths. You never stop learning in knife making. But that's it. It's really not that complicated. It is exactly the same process as the Journeyman. It's just that there are a few more requirements, and obviously they're expecting a higher level of craftsmanship from you. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this series on the ABS. If you have any requests for things that you want to me to cover on a Chalk Talk, leave them down in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, make sure to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button and notification bell to be notified of when I upload new videos. I do have plans for more Chalk Talks coming, including a forge building video. So make sure that you're subscribed, because that's coming soon. I'd like to say a huge thank you to my patrons. These guys make this channel possible. They keep me going. They keep the hammer in my hand. They keep gas in my tank. They keep everything running. And it was because one of them that I actually did this series. So make sure that you're over on my Patreon if you want to support me. I really appreciate each and every one of the people that support me, both here on Patreon and in the comment section down below. But with that being said, guys, I hope you have a fantastic week. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. And if you do, catch it on film and send it to me so I can laugh at your mistakes. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.